Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. Talking Tech is a series of videos celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world, Girls in ICT Day 2020 to Girls in ICT Day 2021. Girls in ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April. This year, it was on the 23rd of April. The objectives of this day are to help create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in the growing field of information and communication technologies. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, and is in support of Equals, the Global Partnership for Gender Equality in the Digital Age. The goals of the series include to interest and inspire girls and younger women with information about a range of possible ICT careers, bring before a broader audience some of the role model women in tech and share information about their career journeys and work, offer diverse examples of how ICT is being used to support achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and other UN goals, showcase initiatives that are working with girls to support them in ICT studies or future ICT careers, provide girls and young women in tech with a leadership opportunity to represent and promote a girls in tech organization with which they are involved and promote it to a broader international audience. My name is Lejal Glaude, and I entered just last year the workforce as a data scientist. Today, I am excited to be having a discussion about tech and tech careers with Cath WestCott, who is a communication regulation specialist at the BBC. To kick off this session, let me explain why I am proud to take part in these initiatives. Through my studies, I capture more and more how problematic it is to have very low diverse population in tech. It is important to bring some visibility to the minorities' experiences in the tech world. This is when PolyQuity was born. It is a student association at EPFL, the Swiss Institute of Technology in Lausanne, that promotes gender equality in the engineering environment. The goal was to create an open discussion and raise awareness about the gender discriminations through diverse events and actions. For more information, feel free to visit our social networks, such as Instagram, without PolyQuity. So now let's kick off our real conversation and welcome Cath. We both hope to bring some advices and confidence to young women to enter the tech world. So it's really easy to know what job we want to do. So I'm wondering, were you always into technology or something led you to it?
No, actually, the degree that I did was in fact in English. And my studies really were more arts based, although I did do maths up until finally leaving school. After university, I did youth and community work, and then I started a course at a local college because I was interested in sound engineering. I used to go to a lot of live concerts, and I wanted to learn how to make the sound better. So it was that electronics course that led me to the BBC, and at the time they had a graduate engineering scheme to be a radio engineer. So my degree may have been in English, but it was actually the key to my job at the BBC. In fact, I just want to say, I actually think the division between arts and sciences is really unhelpful. Both are creative, both are really important, and I don't think they need to be exclusive of each other. Personally, I wish we didn't so easily put ourselves into these different boxes, because I don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's helpful at school, and I don't think it's helpful in the workplace either.
Completely with you there, because just naively, when I heard about your BBC work, I thought you were either a journalist or working with the culture department or something like this. So could you give more details about your job? What are you doing?
Well, that's really common. When I meet people, they almost always assume that I'm a journalist. But actually, engineers and technical staff are really important in broadcasting. And the BBC was in fact begun by engineers. Without our inventions and developments, there wouldn't be radio, there wouldn't be television. For the BBC, there wouldn't be BBC iPlayer. That's our internet streaming and catch-up service for radio and television. If I may, before I explain about my job, just want to say something about working at the BBC, because I'm really proud to work for an organisation which is a public service broadcaster and which takes training so seriously. I'm the recipient of this. Without the opportunity that was given to me through that graduate training course, I wouldn't have had the career that I have had. So the BBC actually has engineers and technical staff working across the organisation in many different roles. And it also offers training, and that training, it could be work experience for a school leaver, it could be apprenticeships or graduate training schemes like the one that I did, could be in broadcast engineering, software engineering, cybersecurity, or research and development into broadcasting. We even have a scheme that's called Step into Tech, and that is a retraining program which is aimed specifically at women, and it teaches them from scratch to be beginner software developers. So I'm lucky to have worked in that organisation for so many years, and I'm also lucky because my role has developed as broadcasting has developed. I actually work for the BBC World Service. That's why I've got a map of the world up behind me. That's the bit of the BBC that broadcasts to the world, not to the UK. And I began as a radio engineer, so fixing radio equipment, broadcast equipment, working in the control room, looking after our global distribution of radio. Then I moved into shortwave radio frequency management. Shortwave radio is where international broadcasting began. And then I moved into spectrum management more generally. So now the BBC, our global distribution of programmes is now multi-platform and multilingual. We have satellite and internet, which have joined the more traditional platforms of radio and television. And our global audience is now 468 million per week. So getting our content to that huge, diverse audience is really challenging. And where I work is in the team that looks after that global distribution. And the most important thing that we need to do is make sure that the programs that our journalists and others make are delivered to our audiences reliably, cost effectively, and without interference. And my role specifically in that team is to represent the interests of our international operations in the UK, European, and international technical regulatory meetings.
So that's actually amazing. It's partly thanks to you that I can now hear from Switzerland the BBC shows and practice my British accent. But what I hear, you've made an impressive career and just went into very different aspects of the BBC technical domains. But you're currently more interacting with the legal world. So how would you describe this mixture of tech and non-tech aspects?
So yes, there is a mix, and I think that's important. So I'll try and explain why. First, I think I need to say that my role is essentially a technical one. In the past, I was actually given the opportunity to move into a policy area, but I chose to remain in the engineering team because that technical expertise and understanding is really fundamental to the work. However, through my career, I've also found communicating and organising skills, as well as negotiating and networking skills, they're also essential. So let me see if I can explain through an example. One of the things that I do at the moment is I chair a group under the European Broadcasting Union, the EBU, which looks at electromagnetic interference and compatibility. So this work is technical, it's complex, and the members of the group are experts in their field. The work that we produce is submitted to standards bodies so that when the standards are developed, they can protect our broadcasting services. In order for us to achieve this, we need to be more than technical experts. So we need to be able to identify the risks, plan and organise strategies to deal with those risks. And we also need to produce evidence and good arguments to support the points that we're making. And we need to work with other people so that we can influence the outcomes. So those are a real kind of range of skills, with the technical skills at the base, but a kind of range of other things.
This sounds really captivating and very diverse kind of challenges, because yes, indeed, the bandwidth for forecasts is limited, so we need to fairly regulate the access to it. But I'd like to come back to your decision to remain in the tech world, because the statistics show that women that enter these STEM fields tend to leave quite early in their career. So did you at some point have envisioned something else?
No, not really. I'd done other things before I joined the BBC, and I've been lucky because I've been really fortunate to work for this organisation, and as I say, to develop as things develop. Sector's constantly changing, and over my career I've been able to change too, and I've actually been able to shape the role that I do, so that's what's kept me there. Then on a more personal level, I've been able to have a career and a family. So I've had access to good maternity provision. I've been able to work flexibly when I've needed to. And those things have been really important part of why I've stayed in my career.
What makes you still excited about your job now?
There's always something new. There's always something new to learn. And what we do is creative. Also for me, because I work for, like I said, a public service broadcaster, what I do is a value and it serves the public good, and that's important to me.
Okay, so you have a very multidisciplinary and international setup. How does your team look like in terms of background and origin?
Well, we're quite a small team, and there's an extensive range of technical and engineering expertise because, as I said, we look after so many different platforms. We're pretty much all engineers, I think, and I'd say almost everyone has a STEM background. We're relatively diverse. I think we've got 25% women, which is in my career quite unusual. And there's a mix of different cultures and ethnicities, although probably wouldn't be surprised that there is still a majority of white British men.
I can imagine. Could you share one or two examples of things that you are really particularly proud of?
Yes, so the first, it was a long time ago, but it is something I really enjoyed, and I planned and delivered a broadcast to the British Scientific Survey in Antarctica. So this is a special broadcast. It's done on shortwave radio and it's delivered every year at the midwinter in Antarctica. I think it's the 21st of June each year. The broadcast carries special messages from the families of the people that are working on the base at that time. And apparently all of the people working on the base have a party to celebrate with whatever provisions they have there. So at the time, I think there were 6 different bases across British Antarctica that needed to be covered. So I used 4 different frequencies from 2 different transmitter sites, 2 in the UK and 1 from a transmitter site that's a BBC site on Ascension Island, which is in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So in order to do that, I had to decide which bands and arrays to use and which bearings, so to understand about the propagation and run tests the week before. Just a bit more about the propagation. Shortwave propagates by being refracted from the ionosphere, which is a layer of the Earth's atmosphere. And the high power transmitter sends a signal up to the ionosphere. It's refracted back down onto the Earth's surface, then it bounces back up again, comes down again, back up again. And in fact, these transmissions can even go all the way around the globe. They can bounce around all the way around the globe. That's how it propagates. Clearly, it loses power as it goes round. So the first hop, what's called the first hop, is really what you want to use when you're planning. But multiple hops can work, and that will depend on the propagation conditions. So planning a broadcast like that, it's kind of quite a challenge, and it's also really interesting to do. So that's a traditional broadcast. It still happens every year, although obviously these days there are other means of communication. But the engineers that plan it and those that listen to it, I think, are still fascinated by the science behind it. And the second example I can give you is a live satellite broadcast demonstration, which I put on at a school for the girls, and it was with an all-female BBC team. So we did a short talk about satellites to explain about them, and then we helped the girls set up a small antenna in the school grounds, pointing it to the right satellite and linking it up with a receiver and a loudspeaker. Then we got a mobile phone and they rang into our control room in London, and their voices were switched through our global distribution system, sent up to the satellite, came down in the school grounds, and then they were able to hear themselves coming back with a short delay. That was amazing. It was amazing to see their faces when they heard themselves coming back down again, and see them thinking, well, hang on a sec, that's been up to space and back, and yet there's this tiny little delay.
Congrats on those 2 amazing examples of how science can connect people no matter where they are on Earth. But it sounds really, really easy when you describe it like that. You must have encountered some challenges along the way. Would you like to share one, and how did you overcome them?
So there's not kind of a particular thing that I can bring up, but some general comments really. So at the BBC, I've pretty much always been either the only woman or maybe one of two, maybe three, working in a team all of men. And I've been really lucky. I've worked with men who are very generous, sharing their knowledge, advising and supporting. So I think I haven't particularly identified any specific challenge in terms of, being one of very few women working with a lot of men. But you do get treated differently. And sometimes things have happened that have made me feel uncomfortable. And the way that I've dealt with that is by trying to call it out and explain. I know that's difficult and it's not always possible, but I believe that we all have something to learn about respecting our colleagues. And if there's the opportunity for dialogue and discussion, then that's how things will change. And I also just wanted to mention here, probably one of the best things I've done in my career, which is joining a staff network at the BBC for women that work in STEM careers. It's called BBC WSTEM. Through this network of volunteers, I've met women who work in all kinds of different roles in the BBC. People like me who've been around for a long time, right down to young women who've only just joined. And we share our experiences, which are very different, and we support and encourage each other. And there's a fantastic mentoring scheme too. So talking to the other women in WSTEM, in the Women's Network, I know many have had to overcome challenges that are different from mine. But I think groups like this are really important for supporting women who work in engineering and tech roles.
Do you have any particular advice for the young girl even before entering the workforce, or even your younger self when you were maybe thinking about your studies and entering some tech field?
Go for it. To be honest, I think I would give the same advice to a girl as I would to a boy. So be prepared to learn and to listen. Don't be afraid to ask for help or ask questions, and also be confident in your own abilities. That last bit is advice for my younger self, because in fact I did get feedback on that from colleagues. The feedback was that I could be bolder and prepared to try things more.
Yes, indeed, self-confidence is a true key to success. Personally, after the engineering school, I feel a lack of business skills about how company or the industry works. So throughout your experience, would you have any business learnings that you could share with the young professionals like me, for example?
I'd encourage anyone starting any STEM studies and considering a career in tech or engineering to, as well as developing your technical skills, to value and develop your skills in things like writing and reporting, organizing and planning, and also in presenting. That's because I think we need to be able to explain what we do to non-technical people in a way that's understandable. And I think we need to be able to communicate why there's value in what we do.
I know what to focus on now for the near future. I would like to thank you for this advice and all of your great answers.
It's been a real pleasure, Emma. And now it's my turn. Okay, so I have some questions for you, and it has been really, it's been really good. We've had a couple of chats beforehand, haven't we? So it's been really good to get to know you and find out about you. So let's see if I can ask some questions so all of our viewers can find out a bit about you too. So how about you? Did you always want to work in STEM and work in technology?
Actually, I was raised since a very early age in a scientific spirit. So everything was explained to me with logic. I was always encouraged to try to find my solutions on my own before asking for help. So even as a teenager, I already knew that I wanted to become an engineer to solve problems.
That's great to hear. That's really good to hear. I think a lot of young women don't, well, a lot of young people, a lot of people don't necessarily know what it means to be an engineer. So to have that as an ambition is really good, I think. Now, in your initial speech, you mentioned PolyQuity, but you didn't mention that you co-created it. So can you explain a bit more about why you think associations like that are needed and what you wanted to achieve through it?
Actually, my motivation for that project was quite simple. I just wanted the words feminism and sexism to stop being a taboo in my school and around me. Entering an engineering school, it was the really first time I felt as a minority, and I could not even peacefully discuss it with the people around me. And I thought it was an issue. So the goal of the association was to exactly open that conversation. We did not want to point fingers at anyone because we did not claim to have any answers, but we took the educational angle to say, okay, let's meet and exchange on our point of views. We've shared with you some studies, some key figures, either role models or numbers from states or companies. And then we moved to more personal and close aspects with stuff we heard on the campus, etc., to help just talk about it.
That's really interesting and really refreshing, Emma. I remember when I started my training at the BBC, I called myself a feminist, but it was a long time ago, and it wasn't a word that people felt as comfortable with as they do now. And for you to say that you even as you were starting out, it's still the same thing, and you did something really positive about it, I think that's really impressive. You've also done some work at summer schools as part of initiatives to promote sciences to young women. Can you tell us a bit about how that went, and whether you think initiatives like this work?
Yes, exactly. Those summer schools are a 5-day period where we have young girls that come into the computer science faculty at EPFL, and we introduce them to different aspects of technology. So they have a small coding project to do. Then they have presentations of either companies or research labs, etc. And I really do think that it has some impact, because the goal is not to make them come to our university, even we gladly accept them, but it's more to show that this option of computer science in this matter is open for them. And the best feedback I ever received as a teacher in this summer school was a little girl saying, you know, I don't know if I'm gonna code later in my life, but today I know that I totally can, and this was the most rewarding.
That's really good. I have a very similar story. We do some events for International Girls in ICT Day, and we had some girls coming in doing a coding workshop, and they had exactly the same response. They said, I didn't think this was something for me, but now I've had a go, I know that it is. It's really rewarding when you kind of allow them to see their capabilities and the possibilities. So what about your job? Can you tell me a bit about the work that you do now and the role you have now?
So now I'm a part of Swisscom. It's a major Swiss telecommunication company, and my work is associated with the Human Resources Department, where I help the development of the data-driven processes. But there is a little twist because my focus is on the fairness aspect of those processes. So I'm trying to measure and remove the potential biases that we have in the different tasks, like recruiting or the compensation, for example.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you think it's important that data scientists come from diverse backgrounds? Does that make a difference to the outcomes or the processes, do you think?
I totally think that we should have demographic diversity within the teams of data science, or even developing AI products that will impact people at the end. Because you cannot expect one team of clones or very similar people able to develop a product that will fit the entire planet. Because in the age of internet, anything that you publish can become global without even you trying to. So as an example, we already know that the voice recognition systems, so for example, Siri, Alexa, or any other, underperform if you have a non-US or British accents in English. So I guess that if there were some, let's say, Australian or Indian people in the team, they would have caught this phenomenon earlier in the development and maybe fixed it before the release of this product.
That's interesting. I think as you were talking about that, I think there are colleagues of mine in the BBC working on some of that voice recognition, and exactly the same thing, trying to broaden the diversity in terms of what it is recognised. So back to you. Do you have any thoughts or plans in how your career might develop?
Actually, right now it's kind of an open door because since I started focusing on ethical machine learning in 2019, the field is really growing at a fast pace. So I'd like to stay close to that topic, whether it's still fairness or explainability of AI, or even the privacy, that are all important topics. But maybe if I project myself along the road, I could also become a technical advisor for the regulations of AI systems to develop a second GDPR or something, and it becomes close to your trajectory.
Well, the sky is the limit. That's very good, very good. So finally, from your perspective, how would you like to see things change? And also, do you have any messages that you'd like to share with other young women, or indeed older women in tech or engineering?
So around me, I see my colleagues becoming more and more aware of the demographic composition of their team. They know there is very low percentage of women around them, only a couple of nationalities present in the team. And there are really some company-wide efforts now to push for diversity, either being for women in technology or more broadly LGBTQI plus communities. It has really reached the top management as a concern, but there is still fear across the companies that the minority will come before the skill level. And that's definitely a challenge. But I do actually have one very specific message, is that being in tech does not mean that you need to fit in the stereotype that you already have in your mind. Like, I was never this persona that will code through the entire night, play video games to the extreme, or has no to very few friends, etc. And some people are like this, yes, and it's okay for them, but you certainly don't have to be like that. And actually, most of the people are not like that.
Well
So
said.
this is something I would like to push.
Very well said.
So I guess this wraps up our session today for Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. I thank you sincerely so much, Cath, for taking the time to share your insights and expertise. And I really enjoyed our chat today. And thank you so much to our viewers for watching, and see you next time.
Thank you.